You pull all-nighters cramming for exams, yet within 48 hours, nearly 70% vanishes into thin air. Sound familiar? Here's what's wild. It's not that you're not smart enough. Your brain is literally designed to dump what it thinks is useless. But here's where it gets interesting. Japanese students master over 2,000 complex kanji characters by age 15 and never forget them, ever. So what do they know that you don't? Your teachers won't tell you this, but the reason you forget isn't because you're lazy or distracted. It's because you're using Stone Age study methods in a digital age brain. Think about it. You spend hours rereading your notes, highlighting every other sentence in neon yellow, making flashcards that look like Pinterest boards. It feels like productivity, right? Wrong. Your brain processes all of that as background noise, like elevator music or those sponsored posts you scroll past without even registering. Be real with yourself for a second. How many times have you highlighted an entire chapter, convinced you'll remember it all, only to sit in the exam and draw a complete blank? That crushing feeling isn't failure. It's neuroscience working exactly as designed. There's something called the forgetting curve, and it's the invisible enemy sabotaging every study session. Within 24 hours, your brain tosses nearly 70% of what you learned. By day 3, you're down to scraps. By exam day, you're basically starting from zero. But what if I told you there's a way to hack this system entirely? Japanese students haven't been studying harder for centuries, they've been studying smarter. They've cracked the code on how to make memories stick permanently, not through marathon study sessions, but through strategic brain manipulation. And the best part? You don't need to wade through 400 pages of dense neuroscience research to figure this out. I've already done the heavy lifting, broken it down, and distilled it into 5 brain hacks that Japanese students use unconsciously, but you can use intentionally starting today. You've been told that reading and rereading your notes is studying. But here's the brutal truth. Reading is passive absorption, and your brain treats passive like it's optional. Enter the Feynman protocol, a technique that flips everything you thought you knew about learning. Named after Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman, but secretly practiced in every Japanese classroom through their senpai-kohai teaching culture, this method has one ruthless rule. If you can't teach it, you don't actually know it. Here's why this works like magic. When you try to explain something out loud, especially to someone who knows nothing about the topic, your brain is forced to organize all that scattered information into a coherent story. You can't hide behind fancy terminology or half-understood concepts. The moment you stumble, that's a knowledge gap staring at you in the face. And that's gold, because now you know exactly what to relearn. Japanese students have figured this out. The person doing the teaching learns more than the person being taught. It's elaborative encoding on steroids. Your brain builds highways instead of dirt paths. So here's what you do. After studying anything, chemistry, history, whatever, pretend you're explaining it to a curious 10-year-old. Speak out loud or write it down using the simplest possible language. No jargon, no technical terms you can't break down. The moment you stumble or reach for a complex word you can't simplify, stop. Circle that. That's your weak spot. Go back to your materials, relearn that specific piece, then try teaching it again from scratch. Better yet, record yourself or grab a patient friend or family member and actually walk them through it. Think of your knowledge like a tangled ball of yarn stuffed in your head. Reading just makes the tangle tighter and more compressed. But teaching? Teaching forces you to untangle every thread, lay it out in a perfectly straight line, and hand it to someone else piece by piece. Once you've done that, once you've untangled it completely, you can never forget how it all connects. The neural pathways are carved in stone. There's a quote often attributed to Einstein that Japanese teachers live by. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. That's not motivational fluff. That's neuroscience. Most students make a fatal mistake the second they finish a lecture or close a textbook. They immediately move on to the next thing. Lunch break, scroll through their phone, start the next chapter, whatever. And in doing that, they've just thrown away the most valuable 5 minutes of their entire study session. This is called the 5-minute recall ritual, rooted in the Japanese practice of fukushu.
Immediate review that's so embedded in their culture, it's not even considered optional. It's just what you do. Here's the signs that will change everything. Your brain has a consolidation window, a narrow slice of time immediately after you learn something, where it's actively deciding, is this worth keeping or should I dump it with yesterday's cafeteria menu? That window? It's open widest in the first 5 minutes. Neuroscience research from Tokyo University has proven this repeatedly. Memory isn't about what you study, it's about what you do immediately after studying. If you actively recall during that window, you're essentially screaming at your brain, yes, this matters, keep it. If you don't, your brain shrugs and tosses it. So here's your new non-negotiable. The absolute second a lecture ends, a video stops, or you finish a chapter, do not move on. Close everything. No notes, no book, no screen. Set a timer for exactly 5 minutes. Now write down or speak out loud everything you just learned, purely from memory. It doesn't need to be perfect. Messy bullet points, half sentences, whatever flows out of your head, that's fine. The act of retrieval is what matters. Only after those 5 minutes can you open your notes to check what you missed and fill the gaps. Think of your brain like wet cement in those first 5 minutes. Whatever impression you make right then, right in that moment, is what hardens permanently into the foundation. But wait an hour? The cement's already dried solid, and now you're trying to carve new patterns into stone. It's exponentially harder, and most of it won't stick. Japanese students know this instinctively. Fukushu isn't a study hack they read about online, it's cultural muscle memory. And now it's yours. Here's what nobody tells you about those epic 4-hour study marathons you're so proud of. You're probably only truly focused for about 45 minutes of that entire time. The rest is just performance art, staring at pages while your brain quietly checks out. Enter the Pomodoro Pyramid, a hybrid of Italian time management and Japanese kanso simplicity that completely redefines what a break actually means. Because here's the twist. Your breaks aren't really breaks. They're stealth review sessions disguised as rest. The science is simple but devastating to traditional study culture. Your brain can only maintain peak focus for 20 to 30 minutes before it starts leaking attention like a broken faucet. Push past that and you're just marinating in diminishing returns. But Japanese students figured out something brilliant. If you combine movement with mental review during your rest periods, you're actually doubling down on memory consolidation. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, which means the information you just crammed in gets cemented faster and deeper. It's not rest or study, it's both simultaneously. Here's your new protocol. Set a timer for 25 minutes of completely distraction-free study. No phone, no tabs, nothing. When that timer rings, stand up immediately. Don't negotiate with yourself. Walk around your room, do jumping jacks, stretch, whatever gets your body moving, but here's the key. While you're moving, mentally quiz yourself on what you just studied. Recite key concepts out loud. Walk through the steps of that equation. Explain the timeline of that historical event to your bedroom wall. After 5 minutes of this movement plus review combo, sit back down and start your next 25-minute block. Repeat this cycle 4 times. Then take a real 15-minute break, where you actually rest. Think of your brain like a phone battery. A marathon study session drains it completely to 5%, and then you need hours, sometimes a full night to recharge back to functional. But the Pomodoro Pyramid keeps your battery hovering between 70 and 90% constantly. You never burn out, but you're always sharp, always ready, and Japanese students live by the concept of purposeful pause, because they understand that the best students don't study longer, they study in shorter, more intense bursts with active recovery. You're not working less, you're working smarter, and your brain will actually thank you for it. Here's a hard pill to swallow. You're probably wasting 80% of your study time reviewing things you already know, while completely ignoring the stuff that's actually tripping you up. It's human nature. We avoid our mistakes because they feel like failure. But Japanese students have a completely different relationship with getting things wrong. They call it shipai, productive failure, and they treat it like gold. That's where the mistake journal comes in, and it might be the single most powerful study tool you're not using. Here's why this works on a psychological level. Your brain is hardwired by evolution to remember failures more vividly than successes, because historically, forgetting what almost killed you meant you'd actually die next time. That's a survival mechanism you can hijack for studying. When you write down what you got wrong, you're creating an emotional memory hook. Your brain flags it as important, dangerous even, which means it gets priority storage. Plus, you're building a personalized study guide of your actual weak points, instead of wasting hours rereading chapters you already understand. Here's your system. Get a dedicated notebook or document and label it "Things I Got Wrong." Every single time you forget something, answer incorrectly, or feel genuinely confused, write it down immediately. Use this format: date, what you got wrong, why you got it wrong, the correct answer, and a trick for how to remember it next time. Then review this journal for just 5 minutes every day, not your regular notes, just this. When you consistently nail something, move it to a mastered section and watch your weak spots shrink.
Imagine if every time you tripped over something in your house at night, you stuck a glowing sticker there. After a week, you'd have a perfect map of exactly where to be careful. That's what a mistake journal does for your brain. It illuminates your blind spots with surgical precision. Japanese culture doesn't view mistakes as something to hide or feel ashamed about. They see it as essential feedback, the raw material of improvement. There's even a proverb for it: Nana korobi ya oki. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. By documenting your failures, you're also reducing test anxiety because you've already faced your worst mistakes in private, processed them, and turned them into knowledge. We learn wisdom from failure much more than success. Start tracking yours. You brush your teeth, scroll TikTok for 45 minutes, then pass out with your phone on your chest. Congratulations, you just wasted the most neurologically valuable 15 minutes of your entire day. Here's what Japanese students know that you don't. The window right before you fall asleep is golden real estate for memory consolidation. They call it nerumai no benkyo, before sleep studying, and it's backed by hard neuroscience from Japan's Riken Brain Science Institute. Whatever you review in those final minutes before sleep gets priority processing during the night, like cutting to the front of the line. Here's what happens while you're unconscious. Your brain doesn't just shut down, it becomes a librarian on overtime, filing and strengthening the day's memories. But here's the catch: the last things you think about get the premium treatment. They get replayed during REM sleep, reinforced and hardwired into long-term storage. Everything else, shoved wherever there's space, maybe kept, probably dumped. This is the primacy and recency effect in action. You remember beginnings and endings best, and sleep is the ultimate ending to your day. Plus, there's zero competition from new information flooding in while you're out cold, so your brain can focus entirely on cementing what you reviewed. Here's your new bedtime routine. 30 minutes before sleep, kill all screens. Blue light doesn't just wreck your sleep quality, it actively disrupts memory consolidation, so your phone is now your enemy. Spend 10 to 15 minutes doing light, passive review. Flip through flashcards, skim your notes, or mentally walk through the key concepts you studied earlier that day. Critical rule: don't try to learn anything new. This isn't cramming time. You're just reminding your brain what matters so it knows what to file overnight. Keep it low stress, reading, not problem solving, and let yourself drift off naturally while those concepts are still floating in your head. Think of your brain as a librarian clocking in for the night shift. If you hand them a specific book right before they start, that book gets filed on the premium shelf at eye level, where it's easy to grab. Everything else gets shoved wherever there's space. Sleep is not the absence of learning. It's when learning becomes permanent.